All right, going live. Welcome, everybody. Hope you guys didn't miss anything. I haven't started yet, so should be all right. I've got Daniel here, but for some reason his video's not showing up, so you guys just have to trust me. Also, he didn't comb his hair, so I didn't want him to show up anyways. So I will show you guys what I'm working on. I've got a piece of hard maple here. I think it's kiln dried or air dried, I don't know. I bought it from the local lumber mill. It's pretty plain, but that is because I will be adding beads to the entire thing, and eventually I hope for this to become my first basket illusion piece. So I'll start off, well, right now I've got it mounted in a mortise, and I've trued up this face somewhat and added a small tenon and shoulder. This will be the backside. So I'm going to start just kind of giving it a bowl slash platter profile after I turn it completely round because it's just cut on the bandsaw. So Daniel, if you want to go through who's in the chat while I do that, that would be great. Thank you all for joining. Huh, that's weird. Let's see if there's something on my side. I guess they can barely faintly hear you now that I'm reading it. Sounds different to me. Can you guys hear Daniel better now? Huh. All right, well, I have no idea what is going on. Let me check to make sure I'm on my headset. Looks like it to me. Can you guys hear me all right? If so, I guess Derek or Double D will just be my earworm and you guys won't be able to hear him. I'll try to relay his messages. All right. All right, well, welcome Steve. Welcome Woodturning by Barry. So I've nearly gotten this around. Or maybe not. It's roughly 8 inches in diameter. I think the problem might be on my end. That's possibly one of the reasons I couldn't see Double D in OBS for whatever reason. And maybe his, you know, input or audio input wasn't showing up there either. Alright, so pretty much round one little bit more here, which I guess doesn't matter because I'll be turning away that corner. So now what I want to go ahead and do is shape the piece from the little shoulder that I turned and leave about 1/4 of an inch here on the outer diameter, and that's where the curve will end because I'll be putting a bead that sort of wraps around from front to back. If any of you guys have seen Harvey Meyer, who is the basket illusionist on Instagram, I'm basically trying to duplicate his little demo here. I've seen it a few times, and he does a great job explaining the whole technique. Welcome, Steve. One of the important things to do with this that Harvey would always say is that if you can cut it properly, you don't have to sand at all except for like 2 seconds. So you want to get a really nice surface on the curve before you cut the beads. Welcome, Lawrence and Amy. For whatever reason, I think it's on my end, but Double D is here with us, but he can only talk to me at the moment. Welcome, Chris. Let me change to the tailstock camera. It's a little washed out, I guess. And lower the tool rest a little bit. This wood is definitely hard and dry. Yeah. 8 o'clock basically here in the center part of the U.S. That's possible. Speaking of Harry, I'll put him down here so you guys can see him in case you know, keep an eye on him. Welcome, Douglas. Now I've got 2 of my bowl gouges freshly sharpened. This one I'm just going to do most of the hogging out, and I'll switch to my other bowl gouge to get like the finishing cut. I basically just want kind of a simple curve, no funny OG shapes or anything, just one continuous curve. That's cool. I've got some chalk paint that I rarely use, but it can give some pretty cool effects. I'm gonna have to start making the curve more steep. Welcome, Gerard. Welcome, Ben. So that's definitely really nice cut. I don't know why I don't spend more time doing this normally, but it's really smooth. I could probably start sanding at 220 or 240. I don't want this curve to be too steep or to be like more of a bowl. I want it to be more of a platter, so I'm thinking I might take away some of this material on the upper side, because right now I'm getting kind of to where the bowl will get too steep. So I'll take one more cut with my freshly sharpened gouge. Also, I want to take the curve into the shoulder, so I have to go against the grain because the shoulder would be in the way. Welcome, Dr. Bob. There's a little bit of a bump there. Okay, now I'll do the finishing cut, hopefully. I'm just trying to take an even thickness across the cut the entire way. Welcome, Rob. Lost the cut there. Try to pick it back up. Should have probably turned the speed up more. I'm at 1,000 RPM right now. All right, let's see where that's at. I think I might have had a better finish the first time. There's a little bit of a bump here that I'll try to get rid of. The reason Harvey says he doesn't like to sand is because if any sort of grit from the sandpaper gets trapped in the wood, then it basically immediately dulls your beading tool, and then you've got to resharpen it, or it might actually cause tear out in the beads. Very cool, Yappy. It's always nice when fellow YouTubers help one another out. Alright, so one little bump here in the middle that I'm going to try to shear scrape away. Welcome, Colin. Getting nice little wispy shavings. Welcome, Adam. So like I said, I'll show you the overhead cam. Here's my initial pencil line that I marked. I'm just gonna cut off probably 1/4 of an inch of this top section once I reverse it. But for now, I'll try and detail what I learned from Harvey Meyer about making the beads. You'll want to start from the rim, and he always does a 3/16 inch bead first, but you don't want to put the very tip of the bead at the end of the bowl. You want to leave about a 1/16 of an inch. So I'll make a little mark there. That's where the first bead will go. And what he does is when he teaches, he'll color the entire piece so that you can tell when the bead is completely cut, because all of this gray will be turned away. and I think he's got like 7 tips as to how to cut the beads. So I use the same beading tools. He has the D-Way beading tools. I don't know if you can get it close up. It's just kind of a point there, shaped like a bead. You have a flute. When you cut the beads, you want the flute to be down against the tool rest. You want it to be cutting dead center. And when you cut, you just kind of do a little rock. And you want the speed to be as fast as it can be. That's all I can think of at the moment. As many as that can fit. So if you Google basket illusion, that's what it will, is what I'm trying to do. Another tip he gives is it's best to have a tool rest that has a hardened steel bar on the top, so I'm switching to this robust one. Even though it's a J shape, it should work out. You also want the tool rest as close to the wood as possible when you're cutting the beads. So first I'm going to line up the point with the point that I have from my tailstock. You want the handle to be about 45 degrees when you're cutting, so I need to lower it a little bit more. It looks about right. Now I'll swing this back around to the outside and make sure I have the right one. This is 3/16. So like I said, I'm just going to put in the left edge first and then rock it over to get the right edge in. Turn up the speed. I'm at 1600 right now. And you just want to score the beads, and then I'll switch to the other one. Guys, you can't really see this at the moment. Wish I could zoom in, but it should get more clear once I get more to the center. And then you start putting in the left edge and then rotate it over. And you just want to score each one, and then you'll go and shape the beads later. The scoring, he mentions, is just a way to ensure you get them in the right spot. He feels it gives a more accurate look, and it's less likely for you to mess up one of the beads you had already fully formed. I guess you can kind of see the beads sort of forming. Just move the tool rest over better. And the beading tool should stay sharp enough for at least the entire platter. He says he can do about 2 8 to 10 inch platters with a single sharpen, and then all you have to do is hone it with a diamond card. No, there's no gouge left in the bead. You just fully make the bead here in a moment. If you've ever seen like those African or Native American baskets that are weaved that have intricate patterns on them, that's kind of what I'm trying to make this look like. Yep. And then once you get to this foot, you'll be turning this foot away later to make a smaller a foot that you can like sign. But I'll add some beads here later and get it more to like about an inch in the middle that doesn't have beads later. So now that I've gotten them all kind of scored, which you can kind of see, maybe the overhead camera will be better. Not really. Welcome JPN. Now I'll go back to the outside with the 3/16 beading tool and get that bead fully formed. And the way you can tell when it's fully formed is all this gray lead that I had put on here will disappear, because you don't want to overcut the beads, otherwise they won't be all the same shape. So Move my tool rest over to this side. Make sure I'm still, yep. So now I'll form that bead, which looks kind of weird where, all right. Yeah, that sounds fun. So I'm almost done. You can still see just a little bit of that paper, lead. And now it's all gone. So now I'll put this tool away so I don't use it again accidentally and form all the rest of them. That's because when you get over here to the inside, let me switch to this camera and then adjust it. When you get over to where you're doing it closer to over the lathe beds, that's not going to show right. Let's see if that works. Sorry if I make you guys sick. But when you get over here closer to the inside, if you had a handle, you'd have it hitting the bedways. So that's the reason behind no handle. And it's all, you're taking small amounts of wood at a time here with the bead, so it's fairly delicate. Was that Dave you said? Oh, welcome, David. All right, so that one's done. All right, I'll show it once I reverse the bowl. I know it's hard to see anything from here. I think that one of my next live upgrades will be a camera that can zoom. Just a little bit. I think it's best not to take the tool away until the bead's fully formed, but for some reason I felt like a chip going on, like there might have been a knot or something. Obviously you want the cleanest, straightest grained wood so you reduce the chance of any kind of tear out. Looks good so far. Yeah, it's just what Harvey said. He said if you feel comfortable doing it all the first time around, then go for it all by all means. It'll save some time. But he said that he just felt more comfortable, like it gives him, now he knows where everything will be before he starts making these cuts. And like earlier, I mean, I go from outside to in, but earlier when I was trying to line up the corner, I accidentally cut part of the unformed bead, so I guess it wouldn't really matter if it was fully formed because I start on the uncut side. I know once you get more comfortable with it, you can go a lot quicker making these beads. The tool gets a little bit hot from what it feels like. I'll go back to the tailstock view. I guess I'm about halfway done at the moment. Maybe I'll try turning the speed up a little more. Now I've designed one pattern with the different colors and everything, but that was for, I think, a different size, so I'll probably have to go back and make a specific color pattern for this particular piece. I'm thinking I might try to make this kind of like a series of lives, so I won't do anything, well, I'll do some of it off camera just because burning it would obviously take like way too long to show on a live the entire time. So I got about 4 beads left. You want to leave the very last one unfinished so that you can use it to reference the new beads once I turn it around. So 3 left. And then we can burn the radial lines in it. I'll show you guys here in a moment. It's just with markers, but there's like a specific type that he recommends. You can do it with Sharpies, like fine tip Sharpies, but those I think are alcohol based, so the colors fade over time. And I think these take like, upwards of 20 hours to complete, so you don't really want it to fade or lose its quality. Alright, so that's the last one there. I've got the little bead there left. I will go ahead. So now what you can use is paperback sandpaper, and what's best is Formica. This is just a Formica sample, but the problem with that is the ones you get from the big box store are around 30 thousandths of an inch thick, and that wouldn't get all the way into the valley. So what I've done here is I've just held it up against a disc sander until I got between 15 thousandths and 18 thousandths of an inch. So now I will go ahead and start burning these little guys. Yeah, sorry about that. Apparently there's the Formica that's used on like vertical applications, like not on countertops, but like on cabinets, is thinner because I guess it has to be less durable. So if you can get that, then that works pretty well. You have to still make it a little thinner, but not by as much. So I'm just gonna use, once you get to like a spot where it's burnt a lot, it's either good to cut off to make a point again, or you can just rotate it since obviously it's a rectangle. Yeah, I'm happy with how it's turning out. It's working better than, or well, decent for a first go at it. And you just kind of want to do a quick burn. You don't want to burn it too much, otherwise it burns the sides of the beads, which makes it not as, I guess, detailed looking. And if you look at Harvey's work, his is like pretty incredible how detailed and clean everything looks. Alright, so I got one left to do. So, I mean, if you can see here, I didn't use too much. I think you can probably get away with a few of them at a time, a few platters at a time this size. I mean, last time I went to Lowe's, I think, because Home Depot didn't have them, I picked up, I don't know, 8 of them. But that's that. Thing he suggests doing if you have some burnout or burning of the edges is just using a purple uh, Scotch Brite pad or what, Webrec, I forget what you guys call it in the UK, but you know, just one of these things. And you can just kind of clean it up and push it in there, and it'll kind of take away that burn mark from the wood. But actually, yeah, it's a Scotch Brite pad, but you're supposed to turn the heat down, which I didn't, but so I guess that's what happens. You're supposed to turn it down to 500. I forgot to do that. But that is it for this side, so let me take that off the lathe and I'll show you a close-up of how it looks. It looks pretty good to me. So there's not any tear out that I can see or chipping, which I'm surprised. But and yeah, I mean you can, if you want, you can just turn it. It feels really cool in your hand, so if you wanted to, you could just leave it like that and you don't have to do the coloring, but I will go the full route with it. So now I've got it mounted on the little tenon I had. Drop the chuck key. Luckily I've got two of them. Alright. And now I'm going to shoot for roughly 1/4 of an inch thick walls when I start thinning this down. Let me switch back to my other bowl gouge, and it's running pretty true. Turn the speed back down to around 1,000, maybe 1,200. And like I said, I want to take away about half of this thickness here just because I felt like I wouldn't get a good curve if I went all the way to the top. So, you know, I've heard before how you shouldn't let the size of the piece affect your design. I'm just taking some roughing cuts here. Now when you do this face, everybody that's turned a platter knows that if you start turning the platter at the rim and then you turn it all the way to the center, then the rim at some point is going to be kind of fluttering because the wood moves and it gets thinner. So you have to do this front face in stages where you do roughly about half of it, and then, well, in this case, with it being so thin, I can probably get away with about 1.5 inches of the beads and then do the rest. So start hollowing out part of the middle here, but not too much. Yeah. It should be good to tighten the tail tool rest. You want to try to get a nice, even thickness. So I'm just roughing out most of this at the moment. I'm going to get some calipers set to about 1/4 of an inch so that I can check everything. This is just a little jig thing I picked up back in the day that I pretty much never work or use, but I figured it'll work pretty well with this. I just set it to 1/4 of an inch, and then you can use this to gauge the thickness. I think I'm actually going to go a little bigger than 1/4 of an inch because that looks really thin to me. I'm like worried that I'd like cut through a bead and just have a weird hoop left. All right, so gotta take a little bit more away from near the rim. The first part is good. Yeah, I mean, I can see how it's helpful, but I guess I've never really turned too much stuff that needed a precise diameter. So I've never used it too much, but I mean, I think it's only like $10 or so. So let's see where we're at now. About halfway is good. So I'll take a little bit more. Yeah. If you already have a 3D printer, I suppose. So now, one of the little tricky shows, I mean, most of this is pretty basic as far as how you do it, but one part that he finds the most challenging is where you have to make sure the bead is following around and have it try to look as round as possible. So a trick he does is he'll get a little square and then put the long part to the back of it, and then what he wants to do, or what you try to do, is make this part of the square touching the wood. So basically I need to take away, cut this wood at an angle like this to make this a 90-degree corner, and that'll help allow you to put the new bead at the right spot to round over the rim, if any of that makes sense. So I'm going to start doing that. Change the tool rest around. Now, for some reason, I had left. Usually, he leaves about a 1/16 of an inch to the outside of the big bead, but I left more than that. I guess just because of my, being a beginner. So that's why I'm going to take off more material here. Stop and see if I'm getting the angle roughly at the right position, which I'm not. I need to increase the angle quite a bit. So let's see where we are there. It's getting there, maybe a couple more degrees. A little bit more. Now, I'm going to say that's good, just because it seems weird. So, now I forget what he did, so I'm just going to have to try to guess. I'll get the larger beading tool back, and I forget where I guess he put it right here. Basically what he's trying to do is get the bead directly on top of the one behind it, so that way it rounds over nicely and you don't have to sacrifice the size of the bead on either the front or the back. Yeah, I plan on it. hopefully I can get most of the beads done and then all the burning, and then that point I need to build the little table that you burn the horizontal lines because I don't have one of those yet, so I'll try to do that over the week, and then next live I can do more of the burning and then start doing part of the coloring if I get the pattern right, but obviously things can change. Alright, I think I need to take away a little bit more material because I left that wall thick at the back here. Welcome, Duncan. Alright, true up this little edge here. Now, I need to bring up my tail stock to put a point so I can know where dead center is real quick. So just put a little mark. Now, see where I want to put this bead at. Lower it a bit. That's about right. Lock that down more. And now I'm trying to look at the back to see where that bead is and where this bead should go. So I think right about there. So I'll turn the speed up again. Switch to tailstock. And I don't know what so this seems weird to me. It doesn't look right. I feel like this is either way too thick. Maybe that's why I need to be a 1/4 of an inch because the beads would have to line up somewhat. So I think I'm going to turn this thinner and hopefully not screw something up. Welcome, Lewis. Switch to my other bowl gouge now. Okay. Hopefully that works out better. Finish is nice. So now I'll try that again. I think what it is I need to have I got to use my other tool rest, or a different tool rest. This one is a Steve Sinner finial tool rest, which hopefully won't do any flexing when I get over to the very edge here. Now I have to reset the center mark. That's about right there. Okay. So now I want to put the tool rest basically parallel with the piece, and then come in perpendicular. All right, that makes more sense. All right, so now hopefully this doesn't feel like it's... All right, so you can see here, you got this little piece of wood that's basically where the two beads kind of met, sort of. So there's a bit of a square bit here on the edge, which this is the point where you want to sand. If you get good at it, you can make the meat better to where you don't really have to sand it, but there's a bit of a square shoulder there. So I'll go ahead and try to sand that stuff away and make it nice and round. Like, yeah, that's what I was worried when I probably could have went a little deeper, but I was like, I feel like this is about to come apart into a hoop. So let me get the sandpaper. Let's grab some 220 grit and round over that outer edge a bit. Turn the speed down again. And you want to just try to make sure not to touch any of the other beads. I'm going to get a higher or lower grit paper because there's a little bit of extra wood to take away. And I'm just guessing that it's best to do it now when the blank is more running true rather than after you do more beading. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's what I thought the first time, which I kind of feel like I want to try to just use the beading tool here to try to, you know, round over that bit there. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it'll break off because this is thin now, maybe, but we'll see. I'll be gentle with it. So I'm going to kind of eyeball center, and then we'll see how this goes. Turn the speed up more. I just want to make sure that the points don't go into any of the part of the beads. So the problem I have is I just left way too much meat on the outside of that last bead, so I'm actually just going to turn away some of that. Okay, so that's a lot better there. So now I'll do some sanding. Yeah. So let's... Oh, yeah, these are cling spore sanding pads. Daniel just asked that, so forgot that you guys can't hear him. Try to use it here to finish off this little bit. Welcome, Blair. All right. I think I just got to sand out this little bump. Or not bump, but it's like a line. Welcome, Tommy. Now I'm just trying to sand it as round as I can get it without any flat spots. I mean, with this being my first one, I'm not too concerned. I think it looks pretty good. So now that's the end of the sanding. Now I will mark the rest of it dark so I can see when the beads are finished. And I think the other tool rest is better because I can get closer in with it. Maybe. Let me set up the center again. This is probably like the worst live to not have Daniel be able to talk because I'm fully focused on this and not able to really see what's going on in the chat. Alright, so now I'm going to do that scoring again like I did earlier. Oh, shit. So I need to switch to the smaller beading tool. Glad I caught that then, before I really made anything defined. I need to turn on a light. Sorry if this is blinding to you guys. Let's see if a tailstock's any better. Try to move the tool rest a little bit more. Try to fit one more bead in here. Oops. I guess I can get a second one. Alright, so I got all those scored. Now I'll go back to the beginning. Sometimes you'll start hear some screaming or screeching from the wood flexing, so if you do that, you just have to hold your fingers behind with a paper towel to try to put some equal pressure. I think I got that one fully round. So. That's because if you hollow it too much, when you turn a platter, the rim starts to, flex a lot more. So I'm just trying to leave some mass so that way the rim is still rigid. So that way I don't get like half a bead here and a full bead over here, or, how you need the bowl to be running true right here to be able to get a nice bead the full width around. All right, that's 2 down. Supposedly there's usually not, there can be flexing when you're out here at this rim, but usually it happens more, when you get around in the middle zone here. For whatever reason, I'm not sure. bit of tear out on that one. I'm going to try to sharpen this a little bit. I guess I'll show you guys how to sharpen it as well. So I'm going to switch cameras real quick. So this is just a little diamond card, and the way you want to do it is put this on a flat surface, and then put the knife, the cutting tool here, and then just drag back. You don't want to go forward, otherwise you might risk rounding the points here. So I'm going to do this here on the top of the headstock, and it's just, you know, 4 or 5 little drags. And hopefully that'll be good and fresh to go. Alright, so I've gotten all the beads except for that last one done, so I'll leave that as a mark for where I can do the next ones. So now let's get back to hollowing out this piece. It's basically the same for the rest of this, so I know I'm approaching an hour. I'll try and get most of this knocked out. Switch back to my bull gouge that I was doing the roughing work with. Welcome, Dara. These are the D-Way beading tools. I'm using the 3/16 inch diameter one and the 1/8 inch diameter one. So obviously you don't want to ruin any of the beads with your tool here, so you just want to make sure you try to get that same thickness. Stop and check. It's definitely thicker, so I need to change the angle a little bit. Whoa! Went too far there. Nothing broke, but let's see if it's still kind of wobbling. Let's see if I can readjust that. Or maybe that'll just be a good time to call it a live. Happened right at 9 o'clock. Alright, that fixed it. What ended up happening is I was going too far, and then the shoulder of the tool caught on this big part in the middle. Just because I was probably trying to rush or get as close to the edge as I could there. So I'm going to take the finishing cut here now. All of the tear out from that catch was on this middle waste wood here, so that's a good thing. Welcome, DJ. Alright, so I'll go back to marking the beads. I don't know if I'm going to go ahead and finish this whole... Do you guys want to see this whole beading thing done on the front, or should I just do a bit here and then call it good, and then I'll finish it off camera? So there's a bit of a knot here. Hopefully that doesn't mess stuff up. Alright, so I'm going to color it again with the pencil just to see when the beads are finished. And then make sure I'm at center height again. Looks, let's check again. Too high. Still a little too high. Too low. Alright. Get the tool rest as close to the wood as you can. Right, now I'll start scoring again. Alright, thanks for reminding me. Whoops. And get one more bead in here. Alright, so now I'll go and fully finish them. Let me put these bowl gouges out of the way before I knock them off. So if you can hear that, that's that whistling or noise from it squealing. So I'm just going to get a paper towel to fold up into a little pad that I can not burn my fingers with. Welcome, Zed. Don't know why it's not stopping the squeaking. It did on his video. Alright. So go to the next one. That one worked a lot better for whatever reason. Let's see. I sharpened this one. Yeah, I don't know why. It was just that first bead I started was being kind of weird. The last two have cut a lot better. I think the knot, I don't think I've gotten to the knot yet. Yeah, the knot's right here in the center next to the wood. Maybe it's just funny grain direction at that particular point. Or maybe I was holding the tool angle at the wrong angle. Alright, so let me see. So I'm down to the last mark that I'd put, so I'll leave that, and then I'll hollow out the rest of this platter. Okay. All right. So Daniel just told me he's got to go, so he's going to be leaving. So I'm pretty much, I'll try and take a look at the chat more often. That's cool, Zed. Is it a laser that Harry the robot wears, or what? Like a weapon of mass destruction? So the fact that there's a chuck and a tenon behind the center part here, you don't have to worry about the flexing, so I'm able to do all the beading here in the center in this large section at once. Did Skynet make the laser? Alright, so I'm getting close to the final shape. And switch to the other gouge. This one seems to be getting a bit dull. So Ben, I see your question about the center. What Harvey suggests is that you continue with the beads and you fit as many as you can until you get to the center, and then you see if you have enough material to make a bead, and if the center is more than 1/4 of an inch, then you add a bead. But if it's less than 1/4 of an inch, just leave it as it is, and then you'll have to kind of get a detail gouge and make it kind of rounded so you don't just have like a square cylinder sticking up in the middle. So I'm going to take one last pass here, try to get a nice finishing cut. Just trying to get rid of that little nib in the center. Which, for whatever reason, there's a lot of, it kind of made like a swirl shape. So I'm going to try and turn up the speed move the tool rest in a bit more and get rid of that bit. I felt some weird vibration there in the center. I think that's a little better, but there's still some vibration. I'm going to switch to a shear scraper and try to get rid of that. To raise the tool rest a little. This is a negative rate scraper. Basically, it's an old skew that I just left a burr on. It's a little better. And go back to the gouge. I don't really like this scraper. I'm going to grind away the heel on this tool real quick. Maybe that's what's keeping me from making it smooth. So what I just did is took away the heel here. Hopefully that'll allow me to keep the bevel in contact possibly the whole time. That's better. It's a little bit left. All right, that's good. So I'll mark it with the pencil again. And one thing that I forgot to do is, now that I turned away the center, I no longer have the point to reference the center of the piece, so I'm going to make a darker mark here just so I can eyeball the tools at the right height. So now we have to deal with this little knot here. Hopefully it doesn't screw stuff up. So adjust the tool rest to be on dead center while holding the tool at 45 degrees. Now I'll move the tool rest as close to the wood as I can get it. I can already tell the outside rim is a little untrue. So you want to make sure you don't touch the tool rest to the piece, obviously. I'll do the scoring of the beads again. Okay, so now it looks like I got about 3/4 of an inch there in the middle, so one more bead will definitely fit. I think I can fit one more, but I need to move the tool rest around. So let's see. That leaves us with about 1/2 of an inch. So I guess one more bead would put us right at 1/4 of an inch, so I'll go with that. Now I'll go back and do the full beads. Turn the speed up more. Get my paper towel thing again and add some pressure to the back. Hopefully that's not too loud for you guys. I'll go ahead and stop and see what happened with the knot. So it cut fairly well. This next bead has a little bit of it on there, but not as much as the last one. So if you guys didn't see it, the beading tool just slipped out a little bit and went to the next bead over, which hopefully will all get taken away when I finish this bead. I think I'm trying to rush things too quickly. All right, now I don't think there's any more squealing because I'm basically where the tenon is, kind of. Yeah, it seems to be cutting a lot better as well. Got one more left after this one. All right. So that's all the beads there. Now on this little center, I have to use a point tool or something with this sharp point to just round over the square shoulder there. So I'm just going to use my diamond point tool and hopefully not screw it up. Got to make sure not to touch the bead next to it. All right, that worked out better than I thought. So now I will use that Webrax pad if I can find it and just get rid of any little grain that might be stuck on there and any remaining pencil mark like there in the middle. And now there's a little bit of tear out here, but for the first one, I guess, you know, somewhat expected. Now I'll get my Formica again, and I will cut a point, because when you try to get in here in the small diameter, you need kind of a sharp point to get in there and reach it. So now I've got a little point cut, and what you can do is you work from the inside out, and once that gets burnt a little and shrinks, it'll fit nicely in the next ones around. So go ahead and do that now. Lower the tool rest a little. And the inner burn mark takes a little longer. I'll turn the speed up. Since the speed is slower, it takes longer to burn. But now it's finally burnt. Just need to cut off a bit of, there's a little bump that's on the Formica that I need to try to smooth off. So I'll use my little knife here and just make it flat again. Turn the speed up some more. You start going, if you keep a nice rhythm, then the Formica stays hot and it goes a lot quicker. No, so this, I think maybe it'd be better to burn in steps. So that way, because out here it's kind of not true. Maybe it's because of the catch, but because there's a burn in part of it, but not the whole way around. So I'm gonna have to kind of hopefully not burn through it and make a loop. We'll see. Yeah, I might just have to do something with a pyrography pin or something. But that's basically the idea. What I would do next, but I won't be doing on this live, is you take off the bowl and then you can reverse it and put it on a jam chuck, and then you turn away most of this tenon until you get like a 1-inch tenon that you can fit in smaller jaws, and then you add beads to this remaining section here just so it has more beads and looks nicer. But here's the general idea. The knot turned out okay. The only issue I have here is there's some tear out here that you can kind of see. It's not too bad though. For a first time, I'm pretty pleased with it. And then once you turn this stuff and make the tenon, you fit the small chuck. The small tenon won't ever be used when the lathe is on. It's only there for indexing, so that's why you can have like a small tenon just holding it here. You do the indexing. I've got to build a table for my pin to sit on and do all the lines radiating from the center, which I will try and get that table built, and I'll probably finish this part and then do a lot of the burning and then show some left on next week's live, and then I'll start doing some of the coloring possibly. But thank you guys for joining. That's basically all I have. I forgot to move the camera. So that's what I've got. I think it turned out pretty well. It looks kind of cool on camera. Definitely feels cool in the hands. But I'm gonna go ahead and hit the button. Thank all you guys for joining. I'm sorry that Daniel wasn't able to talk. I gotta try and fix my audio. But I hope all you guys have a good weekend. See y'all later. Bye now.